So, lads, there is a WNBA team that have been very, very, very much in, like, they made it clear that they want Caitlin Clark, or they're eventually going to want Caitlin Clark. Along those lines, they made it very, very clear.
With her starlet Caitlin Clark, Stephanie White believed she had it all figured out. However, karma has a humorous way of having instructors retract their statements. Another growing problem is plaguing Clark. All of a sudden, those intimate meetings at the New York Liberty no longer seem so harmless. Folks, the writing is on the wall.
Of like, did she have imaging today? Was it just see how she was feeling? And I know you have a game tonight first, but is there any discussion yet about this weekend with her? Because obviously she's a huge part of All-Star.
No discussion yet about this weekend. There was imaging done. And, obviously ruling her out for tonight. But there hasn't been any discussion beyond tonight.
After witnessing Stephanie White's handling of her injury condition, do you believe Caitlin Clark is already mentally leaving Indiana? Here, let's be brutally honest. Caitlin Clark's treatment by Stephanie White has been as seamless as sandpaper on silk. Due to groin issues, Clark has missed several games this season, and White's response hasn't been encouraging. You're having issues when your franchise player is coping with chronic injuries and you're treating it like it's just another workday.
There's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her. I knew it as an opponent, and I see it as her coach. I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is. And we've got to help her learn to adjust and use it against them in certain ways.
From day one, the pattern has been obvious. Regarding Clark's involvement in the offense, there are indications that White and Clark are not entirely in agreement. Even though Clark has made it clear that she performs best when she has the ball in her hands, particularly during transition, White continues to try to take the ball away from her. Does White, however, pay attention? Obviously not. She is too preoccupied with putting her system into place to recognize that she has a generational skill that requires the ball to function well. This season, Clark has missed 10 games because of injuries, including one to his left quad. 10 games? That's a pattern, not just bad luck. When questioned about Clark's injury worries, how does White respond? We practice semi-live shooting exercises. She still hasn't fully committed to a live defensive group or practice. That's really comforting, coach.
We have just seen the New York Liberty players, after the game, meeting up with Caitlin Clark. It is Stewie. It is Sabrina Ionescu. There is Sandy Brondolo. And by the way, Stewie is not leaving New York the rest of her career. That is one thing that I will be 99% sure of. That Stewie is not leaving. New York. Sabrina is not going to leave New York. I think there is a 50-50 chance Caitlin Clark leaves Indiana after her rookie season.
The most significant aspect is that Clark sustained a right groin injury in the last minute of Tuesday's 85-77 victory against the Connecticut Sun, which forced him to miss Wednesday night's game against the New York Liberty in Brooklyn. White's reaction to her sobbing on the bench was essentially a shrug. Following Tuesday's game, White informed reporters that Clark had a slight groin ache. Something small? You call it a little something when your best player is crying while sitting on the bench. The disparity is simply astounding. This is when things start to get interesting. Clark has been surrounded by the New York Liberty like sharks. And really, who is to blame? Ka Clark, CEO of the New York Liberty, admits that he came in and sparked a fire and had an indisputable influence on the company's recent rise. They recognize the worth that White doesn't seem to recognize. Recall the Indiana Fever's victory over the New York Liberty 1-0-2-8-8, when Clark equaled a career-high 7 three-pointers and scored a season-high 32 points after returning from injury. That was Clark demonstrating her abilities when she is well and in the correct frame of mind. However, what followed? More games missed, more injuries, and more dubious coaching choices made by White.
In the bowels of the Barclays Center with Liberty coach Sandy Brondello and Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu. I'm just having a little fun.
Nor is the Liberty connection merely conjecture. In the All-Star draft, Clark chose guard Sabrina Ionescu of the New York Liberty with a 3rd overall pick. It's more than just a basketball choice. In doing so, Clark is demonstrating his appreciation for a player who has experienced the same pressures and expectations that she has. It's clear that Clark and the Liberty players respect one another, something she obviously lacks with her present coaching staff. At best, White's handling of Clark's playing time has been dubious. White stated that having 2 primary ball handlers on the floor is something she enjoys, and she explicitly stated that she does not want Clark to play 94 feet under duress the entire time she is on the floor. We're referring to your franchise player here. You are concerned about her playing too much, despite the fact that she was the one who single-handedly raised the profile of the whole WNBA. The conflict between coaching philosophies is becoming more obvious every day. I think we need to do a better job of getting me the ball in transition, Clark said bluntly. I believe there's a delicate balance between getting the ball in my hands and playing me off the ball, whether someone is present or not. I'm at my finest throughout transition at that point. You're not making a request. In other words, Clark is giving her coach all the information she needs to be successful. Keep trying to make her play off the ball, was White's reply. White's handling of the injury problem has been subpar, and it is starting to become a serious concern. Throughout her brief WNBA career, Clark has never had a lower field goal or three-point percent. You modify your system to assist your star player when they are having trouble. You don't simply shrug and claim that their gunfire doesn't concern you. Let's address the most pressing issue, which is Clark's contract status. She has time to consider her future because she is in her 2nd year. The Liberty are more than just a competent team. They are a championship-caliber club that understands how to make the most of its players. A minority ownership in the Liberty was recently sold for $450 million, the highest amount ever paid for a women's sports team. That's a company that makes investments to succeed. Contrast it with the Fever strategy. Without Clark, the Fever finished 5-5 this season, most recently losing to the Sparks 89-87 of Los Angeles. They are totally reliant on her. However, they are unable to maintain her health or make good use of her while she is well. That isn't a long-term success model. When you compare Clark's treatment by her own squad to that of other teams, the difference is obvious. With an average of 2.2 million viewers, Clark's comeback game against the Liberty tied for the 2nd most watched WNBA game of the season. Her own coach treats her like she's just another player who has to fit into the system, even though she's appointment television. White frequently seems to be attempting to minimize Clark's influence in her post-game remarks following wins. White was more concerned with the team's defensive play than praising Clark's bench leadership following the Fever's resounding victory over the Aces. White is unable to give Clark the credit she deserves, even when she is hurt and supporting her teammates.
See, and this is one of the more important things. You see this right here? You see this right here? This is Caitlin's agent. This is Caitlin Clark's agent.
When you take into account the coaching staff, the Liberty connection becomes even more intriguing. Sandy Brondello, the head coach of the New York Liberty, was supposed to coach Clark's team in the All-Star game. That's not merely a coincidence, and it gives Clark a taste of what top-tier coaching looks like. This is what irritates me the most. White's remarks regarding the timing for Clark's return. White revealed that even after going through rehabilitation phases, Clark hasn't yet fully committed to a practice or a live defensive group. Clark has already had to battle with a number of ailments this season. By now, a capable coaching staff would have learned how to balance the effort of their top players. The attacking philosophy is the clearest indication of White's disconnection from Clark. According to White, her main worry is how we will continue to move the ball and get it moving when we reintegrate her, not just side to side but baseline to baseline. Instead of trying to figure out how to fit your best player into your system, your first priority should be to get her back to 100% and let her dominate. In contrast, the Liberty are aware of star power. They have Sabrina Ionescu and Breanna Stewart, and they have designed their system to make the most of their abilities. They don't attempt to mold their stars into a certain shape. To get the most out of their players, they adjust. Throughout the season, Clark's dissatisfaction has been evident. Following her most recent groin ailment, as she walked to the Fever seat and covered her head with a towel, Clark was clearly upset. It's more than just bodily discomfort. That's what a player feels when she sees her career being handled poorly. There is a noticeable difference between Clark's performance when she is healthy and when she is battling injuries. The Fever scored a franchise-high 64 points in the first half, led by 14 points and 13 assists from Clark when healthy. However, she finds it difficult to settle into a routine when she's dealing with persistent ailments and dubious coaching choices. White's approach to Clark's all-star predicament aptly captures the issue. Caitlin and her team will make decisions when it comes to all-star, White stated in response to a question concerning Clark's involvement in the all-star festivities. For me, having all-star in Indianapolis is a huge deal. Naturally, Caitlin is essentially blaming others rather than accepting accountability for her players' well-being because she is the center of all of it. When it comes to player development and veteran leadership, the Liberty and the Fevers take completely different approaches. They have a history of winning titles and making the most of their abilities. The Fever. They're still attempting to determine how to employ the league's most gifted athlete. White's obvious incapacity to read the room is what exacerbates this scenario. One does not make claims regarding ball movement and system integration when a player of Clark's caliber is battling injuries. You concentrate on restoring her health and leveraging her advantages. White has a basic misperception of what she has, as evidenced by her constant discourse about fitting Clark into her system rather than modifying it to play to Clark's strengths. In addition to physical setbacks, the injuries can cause mental harm. Clark entered the league with unwavering confidence and an iron will. However, that confidence can be undermined when you're battling physical problems all the time and working with coaches who don't seem to appreciate your full potential. After her most recent accident, we witnessed an emotional response that went beyond the mere physical discomfort. It was about her dissatisfaction at what she perceived to be poor career management. The elephant in the room needs to be addressed. The alleged exchanges between Liberty players, Clark, and her agent. Conversations between agents and other organizations are more than just pleasant networking. That's business. When their client is having persistent problems with their current team, Clark's agent would not waste time on pointless discussions. These discussions' timing is especially instructive. They are taking place while Clark struggles with injuries and disagreements over coaching philosophies. And it's no accident. Because they are dissatisfied with the state of affairs in Indiana, Clark's camp is investigating their alternatives. White has continuously been tone-deaf in his public remarks regarding Clark's ailments. A comment like calling a groin injury that has your star player crying a little something causes players to wonder if their coach actually understands or cares about their welfare. Agents begin calling other organizations as a result of this type of announcement. There is a clear difference between the Fever's organizational structure and that of Liberty. The Liberty are aware that winning teams are based on making the most of their best players' abilities. Neither Sabrina Ionescu nor Breanna Stewart are forced to conform to any preconceived notions. They create structures that give such players the upper hand. Under White, the Fever have taken the opposite tack. They have attempted to incorporate Clark into their pre-existing framework rather than enhancing her special abilities. That is outdated thinking that shows a basic lack of understanding about how to create an organization that can compete at the championship level. The fact that Clark's agent is present when speaking with Liberty players is more than simply a coincidence. It's a calculated move. You begin looking for alternatives when you're working with a coach that doesn't seem to recognize the full worth of your client and is unable to maintain their health. This is exactly what seems to be taking place. The fact that this whole thing was entirely avoidable is what irritates me the most. From the beginning, White had the chance to create something unique with Clark. Rather, she's made it so that her best player is always hurt, dissatisfied with the coaching style, and possibly searching for a better future elsewhere. Relationships between successful coaches and superstars throughout sports history are based on respect and understanding for one another. While the star supports the team's overarching philosophy, the coach modifies their approach to optimize the player's strengths. In Indiana, we're witnessing a coach who expects her star to fit into her system without making the necessary changes. Anyone who has been paying attention can see the writing on the wall. A perfect storm has been generated by White's tone-deaf comments, dubious coaching choices, and Clark's anger with the injury situation. The Liberty have the organizational skills and are in a position to capitalize on this circumstance. Before it's too late, the Fever had better wake up. The Liberty are providing everything Indiana isn't, and Clark's tolerance is running out. Proper star treatment, championship culture, and skilled coaching. The wearing of a New York Liberty jersey is Stephanie White's karma.